All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our special end of 2023 Fireside Chat. We're no longer in our fall Fireside Chat series. We are in our special event, end of 2023, predictions for 2024 wrap-up Fireside Chat. So we very much appreciate you being here. We're very excited for this. We are ContentLab. We're a content marketing company, technical content marketing. That's what we do. It's all we do is we do it well. We've created thousands and thousands of pieces of content for hundreds and hundreds of clients, and we look forward to continuing to do so in the new year. My name is Peter White. I am a full stack developer with 13, 14 years experience. I've been doing content now for 2 years-ish. And with me, as always, is Roger Winter. Tell the people about yourself.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I'm Roger Winter. I'm also a content strategist at ContentLab. Prior to joining ContentLab, I was a web developer for about 10 years and also spent several years around the content space doing SEO and written content development and content strategy and all that fun stuff. So excited to share some insights with you all today.
Perfect. Yes, and so we're going to talk about the things that we've seen over the last year. We've worked, each of us, with a lot of clients over the year and spent a lot of time thinking about content, working on content, and so we've put together kind of our list of the biggest impact things of 2023, and we're going to start there. We're going to get into 2023 year in review, and we're going to start. I'll throw this to Roger to start because I think there's one thing obviously that's dominated pretty much all of content talk in 2023. It's we'd be remiss to not start by talking about AI and its impact on content. So why don't you give us your thoughts on that, Roger? Your thoughts, not ours. I'll give my own.
Yeah. So AI is obviously the big one, kind of like you said. It's definitely the topic that sort of dominated all of the headlines in 2023. Pretty much no matter what industry you were in, I feel like, or maybe I have sort of myopic view because it's impacted the industries that we have an interest in so intensely. But yeah, we're going to talk about AI a lot throughout this chat, but just to kind of set the stage for it, obviously, looking back to 2023, I think we're going to look at it as sort of the year of LLMs and AIs and ChatGPT in particular coming to prominence. It's shaken up a lot of things. It's changed the way that we look at not just content development and content marketing, but also even things like software development, which is something that is super important to us here at ContentLab. So we're seeing a lot of shifts in the way that just the way that content is produced and the way that these AI tools are being utilized. So in the beginning of 2023, I think there was a lot of sort of like almost existential questions about what exactly AI's role was going to be, to what extent it might replace or supplement human efforts and all of this kind of stuff. And we'll get into that a bit more, but it's been a really major question. And here at ContentLab, we've certainly done a lot of things to embrace AI and find ways to incorporate it into our process. And so far, I think the most exciting thing that I've seen coming out of 2023, though, is that rather than sort of overtaking or replacing human efforts, we've seen AI actually create a lot of opportunities. People who know how to use it well have the opportunity to really scale up what they're doing and just sort of use it as kind of a superpower to whatever your workflow happens to be. So it's been a really interesting year of us just learning how to use AI and how to get the most out of it and learning exactly what its impacts are. And yeah, Peter, how's it impacted you? How would you say how does your outlook look different from 2023 with the advent of AI specifically?
So, I mean, like you said, right out of the gate, my workflow has changed entirely. I mean, everything I do, for the most part, touches with AI now. I wouldn't say that AI in any way is replacing what I do, but it's definitely supplementing what I do. There's a lot of tasks that I can do a lot quicker. It's not like some of us feared at the start. It hasn't replaced anything as far as I can tell right now, because it just does. It's just not that good. Do you know what I mean? It's very good, but it's not replace your writers, replace your strategy good at the moment. It's still you need somebody who knows how to use it and knows what they're doing to use it. In my opinion, from what I've seen. But things like I mean, writer's block doesn't exist anymore. If I want to write a paragraph, I can just hammer out something kind of, I don't know, a little bit rough around the edges and kind of have it help clean it up and things. So things like that, like smaller tasks, AI has been really good for, and I really think it has changed the way that content marketing works. But I don't think, I think the fear of it replacing everybody's receded a little bit. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's kind of how I'm feeling from clients right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was just a moment there where it was like we weren't sure how capable this thing was or how fast it was going to advance, and we kind of needed to live with it for a moment to not us personally, but like the industry at large in the world, to just to kind of see what what exactly its impacts are going to be and what the best ways to use it are. And here, coming at the end of 2023, I think we have some exciting perspective on what it actually looks like to sort of live and work with these tools.
Yeah, it's been interesting to read bad AI articles. You go, oh, this is kind of like when you read a bad person's article. Like if someone doesn't know how to write with AI and they use AI, they're still going to produce a bad article. I've seen it, and
That's
it's
very
confusing.
true. Yeah.
So I find that AI too has impacted a lot of other things kind of in the industry, that, like indirectly. So like one of the things that I've seen in 2023 that has been kind of big for a lot of my clients is the move a little bit away from SEO focused approaches, because we used to do a lot of content, a lot of companies do a lot of content that was a little bit lower level, just trying to get that info up there that may already exist somewhere else, but you want to have it on your site as well, so people searching will come to your site. I found that the demand for that has gone down quite a bit, mainly because people doing that kind of research often use AI now. If I have a low level question, instead of Googling it and going to a site, I will ask ChatGPT to give me the information. And I think that's kind of starting to perpetrate, whatever the word is, find its way into everybody's life, so that that low level SEO content isn't quite as impactful as it used to be. I don't know if you've seen that through the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much of it I've seen in the day to day, but I certainly feels like a current and a trend that's coming, and you see that more and more with like, well, in one capacity, the search engines themselves are sort of changing. We don't see this so much with Google, but like with Bing and its Chat GPT integration and stuff like that. Like if you go to Bing search now and use that, you'll still get the actual search results, but it'll give you the answer to your question like through Chat GPT as well, and like highlight that answer. So, and I think we're going to see a lot more stuff like that. I think we'll probably see something like that from Google before too long, where you maybe, I'm sure they'll still have the search results available, but like at the top of the page, you're going to get an answer from whatever their AI is, and so yeah, that creates a lot less space for these SEO content, which, like to your point, Peter, a lot of the time SEO content isn't really original. Like you're not even trying to offer a fresh perspective or something. The goal is just to make sure you represent those keywords so that you have the potential to attract that traffic. And I think we're going to see a lot less of that because, as we've already mentioned, you can get answers from AI, but also because there's going to be a saturation that happens now. Like this has already happened with the SEO industry having gone on over the last couple decades of just people pumping out a lot of SEO content. So it's already a saturated market, but now you have AI doing that as well. And so like the time to create one of these sort of low effort, simple SEO posts has gone way down. You're going to see way more of it on the search engine. I think that's just going to make it harder to compete and just make this content less and less relevant.
That's fair. I think as AI starts to do all those articles too, they're going to become unreadable as it just continues to copy it over and over again, and weirder and weirder word choices.
You get that sort of super compressed thing that's been through too many overly processed content, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the modern version of that JPEG that you've seen reposted 1,000 times. It's gotten all grainy.
Yeah, but I think as kind of a natural segue to our next point, so something that I've seen a lot of in 2023 is people trying to prevent things like that happening, or to kind of give it a broader perspective, to just make sure that we're sort of stewarding our AI very well, and making sure that its outputs are sort of curated and moderated and fact checked and edited to actually make sure that we're getting something good. And this is something that we've well, we didn't come up with it, but we've certainly been using the term human in the loop. which basically means, you know, we're using a lot of this AI systems and working with them actively, but not in a way that replaces human efforts. So we're still keeping the humans in the loop in the sense that ultimately we want experts to evaluate the quality of what's coming out of it. We want subject matter experts in the field to fact check whatever we get from the AI. We want expert writers and editors to actually go through and polish it and make sure it's not like one of these terrible AI articles that Peter is referring to. And because, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to use AI wrong. And I think that's something we've seen plenty of in 2023 already. It's definitely not the sort of complete solution where you can just go and type something in and get out whatever it is you need perfectly. But it's definitely at the point where if you have prompt engineering, you have the right structures in place, and you have a decent understanding of it, you can get some pretty interesting results. But I think it's very much something dependent on human effort and input at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Like we were saying earlier, it's a great tool for improving someone's productivity and knows what to do. But if you try to come at it with no background knowledge, you're just gonna have to trust it, and that's unfortunately just about the worst thing you can do, because it's a filthy liar pretty much all the time, and so confident about the lies. I believe them so often. So many times I'll read a paragraph and be like, "That doesn't sound right," but they're saying it so confidently that I feel like it must be, and then you fact check and realize it's not even kind of close. They give you a reference to a book that never existed that somebody wrote. Uh, so, I mean, AI is obviously the big story of the year, but I think the other big story that is less fun and less exciting to talk about, but I think is maybe even more impactful day to day, has been kind of we've noticed this across the board, a little bit of a budget crawlback for a lot of marketing teams. It's really been a lot of people have had their budget slashed or their resources slashed, and a lot of content marketing teams and marketing teams in general are finding themselves having to figure out how to do more with less. Which, I mean, AI is good for. It's good for being able to kind of bolster your content approach, but it's not a full solution, unfortunately. So I think a lot of content marketers, and I know I've seen this with my clients, are trying to figure out how, with a little bit less money, they can keep the cadence and the pace of their content marketing, that they've had before. And a lot of that is kind of being more strategic in your content approach and being a little more thoughtful up front. Like I think planning is really important now. It used to kind of just be, well, we'll make as much content as we can and try to cover every base and make sure we get everybody we can. But I think now in 2023, we've noticed that planning is utmost importance. You really need to, every piece of content has to have a purpose, and you really have to have an overall strategy so that you can get, instead of like a shotgun approach trying to hit everybody, you're trying to get the right people to read your content, and you're trying to keep those people, like retain them and lead them down through the funnel, because every lead is important now that we don't have the budgets that we used to have. I don't know if you're seeing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really complicated year in terms of the budgets, and it seems like on some way it seems like a nice pairing that, hey, we have these new AI tools and we can do more with less, and there's so like, hey, maybe we can overcome these budget constraints. And that's true, but it's also been a year of like learning and experimentation. So it hasn't just been like, oh, we have less money, we can just offload some work to AI, because there's a whole process that organizations are undergoing of learning how to use that AI and experimenting with trial and error, which is not necessarily a budget friendly process. So yeah, I think it's been really complicated, and as we've said, other strategies are shifting as well. So like as people pivot away from sort of some of the like low level SEO stuff and want more original, interesting content that really says something, that stuff just isn't cheap. It's hard to come by. It's very and it's not something that AI can necessarily give you, because it can't really. It's an expert at Googling stuff, basically, at reading other people's information. So it's not really offering too much originality. You can use it to produce original things, but that's another story. So yeah, I think it's just been really complicated of people learning how to use AI and adjust to their budgets, and certainly to your point, Peter, I think content strategy and planning are more important than ever because, making sure you're speaking to the right audience and not just like kind of shotgunning stuff out like for SEO purposes or whatever it is. Making sure whatever budget you do have was really going towards useful content that was speaking to the actual people who need to hear it and may result in conversions. So yeah, just planning and adapting to the new tools and doing all of that within a constrained budget has been a complicated year, but hopefully it's something that will be a little bit, the industry at large will be a little bit more capable of handling. Hopefully budgets go up this year as well, but I mean, at least now I think we do have the perspective of doing more with less, which is a useful skill to have.
Yeah, and I think as people realize, like you said, that we don't need kind of the shotgun approach that we used to take, and using the budget smartly to come up with. I like the word used there, originality. I think that's something that's really going to start shining through. I've seen it a little more kind of towards the end of this year, that people are coming to me with, we need something different. We need to come up with content that's different than what's out there, as opposed to in the past where it was, we need to make sure that we're caught up on all the content that everybody's got. Mm-hmm. Now it's more, I need to come up with something that's going to make me stand out, which, like you said, is not something that AI is particularly adept at doing. It's great at helping you flesh out your original ideas, but coming up with those original ideas is a little bit tricky. But one area that I've seen some companies have some success, and I think this is something that's going to carry on through to next year, not to get ahead of ourselves here with our predictions, but I think a product-led approach is really coming into fashion now, because the product tends to be something that has at least some uniqueness about it, or else it wouldn't have been built in the first place. So if you have something that's a little more, a little different, and something that you can showcase that's different than most people have, if you lead with that, that gives you a way to stand out from things. So I think a lot more people are going to start taking that product-led approach and focusing on product as opposed to more general information.
Yeah, and from the perspective of an organization, I think a lot of ways that is a great approach, because I mean, what do you know better than your product? There's 1,000 places you can go to look for tutorials or other information, but really, putting the spotlight on your product and showcasing, what it can do for your customers, and just, yeah, I think it's a great approach and it's certainly sort of a shift. Well, it's a shift that we've seen before AI and everything, but I think it's something that might compound a bit with AI as like we've explored here. There's less opportunity to just sort of be like sort of a general knowledge base kind of a resource, because people are going to AI for that kind of stuff. So why are they going to come to your website to learn about you and your product? And so, yeah, I think a product-led strategy is a great thing to have on your radar moving into 2024.
Yeah. More complicated, though. It's important to note that it is harder to convince people to read something about your product. So you have to find a way to bring them something still, some sort of something they can use regardless of if they're using your product or not, but find a way to leave with your product. So it's not an easy task, but it's where we're at in content marketing right now. So
there's a balance to be found there for sure. And I think sort of an important thing to remember with everything we're saying, especially about AI and product-led and all of this, it's not like one day we woke up and a switch was flipped and everything was different. It's like a lot of these things are sort of merging into each other. And one thing that I'm you probably had this experience as well, Peter, over 2023, a lot of what we've done is try to find ways to synergize these new things with existing plans, and kind of find the balance between all of these different elements that's going on. So I just want to say that because I don't want to give this perspective like, oh, everything is different now. And things are definitely changing, and they're changing very quickly, but it's a gradual progression.
No, that's a good point. I mean, if we really sat down, there's probably more things that are the same than are different, but nobody wants to listen to a talk about how things are the same. So we're highlighting the differences. But yeah, that is a very good point, that it's not a whole new world out there. It's the same ideas, but with fancy new tools.
But in terms of look at what this is actually going to look like, I think we can jump into the sort of our predictions for 2024, or sort of how we see some of this stuff continuing into 2024. For me, I think one of the most exciting things that I'm looking forward to is just like getting some hard data on all of this AI stuff that's been going on, because we've had about almost a full year now. I don't remember exactly when ChatGPT blew up in the news, but we've had almost a full year now of all of this AI stuff, all of these LLMs and these different applications, and across all sorts of different industries, content, software, all sorts of stuff. And so for me, the really exciting thing about 2024 is we're actually going to be getting some data back about how effective all of this stuff is. So everyone already has some insights into this, but it takes a while to really understand how effective your content is or how effective the use of these new tools is, and kind of evaluate a content strategy over the long term. So now we're going to start getting all of this longitudinal data about how effective AI really is, how useful it is in your content strategies and stuff like that. And, what is the ROI? How do people respond to AI generated content? All of this kind of stuff. We're going to start getting this actual data in. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most, I think, is just actually being able to evaluate this and start making data-driven decisions about how to use this AI effectively.
That's fair. This is not on our discussion list, but I just wanted to put you on the spot with it. Do you think there'll be an AI leap this year in its abilities? I know OpenAI is kind of making it seem that way, but I don't know if I believe it.
It's an interesting question. I think we will definitely see some leaps. I don't know if we're going to see them like. I feel like when ChatGPT 3 came into the news, it was like a massive shakeup. I don't think we're going to see anything to that scale. I think we're going to see more gradual improvements and iterations on it getting better at doing specific things. There is interesting. I don't know. I hear really conflicting reports when I try to look at like the thought leaders in the industry. You hear things coming out from OpenAI where they're like, we have this brand new thing. I know their Q star or whatever is like much better at doing math and solving certain kinds of problems. But then I read things from like the Microsoft side. I believe one of their high up AI people was talking about how they believe that like LLMs have probably reached a point of like there's sort of a blocker there for further advancement just due to like the kind of the constraints of the technology and the size of training models and all of this kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be advanced. I certainly think AI is going to be probably significantly better by the end of 2024, but I don't think we're going to see anything as dramatic as what happened in 2023. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to see AI really improve for a lot of things, like you said, but I honestly don't think that the writing itself is going to improve all that much. I think there's still something a little bit intangible about good writing that I don't know that you can just kind of improve the AI that well to do something like that. I think it'll be, just kind of like a better version of what it is now, but I still don't think it's going to be able to come up with new ideas or write something new. Like I think that's always going to be a blocker for it. I think it'll be very good, like you said, at math, or I think it might get quite a bit better at programming. I think things where there's a definite answer and it can check it. I think you'll see a lot of improvement, but I think we're closer to the top than the bottom of its writing ability. But I don't have a lot of data to back that up. That's my feeling in my soul.
No, I think you're probably on track there. I think in terms of its ability, like what GPT transformers do in terms of their ability to just kind of organize text and spit it out. I don't know if I don't even know if that's really even the focus of advancements right now. Like when I read stuff from OpenAI and it's more to do with its like the internal reasoning and logic of the model and how it interprets and parses out things. Like I go to the math example because it's GPT is actually can be surprisingly bad at doing certain types of algebra and stuff if you give it word questions.
Really? I've never tried that.
It's like it's capable of doing math, but it gets confused somewhere between the translation of like words into and all that kind of stuff. So I think like that's where, and that's something that the consumer might not like us as the consumers of ChatGPT or something like that, it might not really impact us that much unless you're doing that specific type of work. But that's kind of the focus that I hear from a lot of the AI people of doing like sort of improvements like that are from the consumer quite subtle, but actually very important to the scope of AI itself and its improvement.
That's fair. I'm interested to see what happens with it.
Yeah, and now that we're thoroughly off topic, I'll bounce it back to you. I think
Yeah, I have a prediction that's somewhat related to this, if that's all right. Or do you still have more about AI? Sorry, I
no,
didn't mean to
please,
cut you off.
please.
I just I'm excited because this is whatever. I feel like an old man talking about this, but I think with how much AI is really getting itself into marketing, I think in 2024 we're going to see people really get a taste for human generated content with more of an authentic feel and more of a feel like someone's talking to you again. I think the personality in writing and the human side of it, where it's not still not entertainment, but it's more fun to read than the hundreds and hundreds of AI articles that exist. I think things like personality within an intro of an article where you read it and you go, oh, this guy actually gets me, as opposed to the somewhat dry AI intros that have been written, and I think will propagate over. I really think good writing is going to shine through. I don't think I mean, I do think that some content marketing jobs may never come back, but I think there's going to be a place, and a really important place, for people who do really know how to write and really know what they're talking about. I think that's going to come through a lot in 2024. And maybe that's just me wishful thinking, because I really want to return to that, but I think that's the value of that is really going to shine through next year.
Yeah, I'm optimistically hopeful. I think I think ultimately at the end of the day, yeah, people are still going to want to hear from other people, basically. So I think human generated content will certainly have a premium, and I think it's important to find ways to support that. So your blog probably already has an author bio page or whatever, but moving that kind of information more to the forefront, I think is going to be important thing to consider, and being like, hey, somebody actually wrote this, and here's who it is, and this is a real person. I mean, that's been important for a while in things like SEO, but now with AI, I think it's going to become even more important. And yeah, at the end of the day, an AI might be able to produce a pretty good article, but it can't really it doesn't really excel at evaluating the quality of that article in a way. Like it can't really tell if it does the thing that it needs to do. Um, and so I think, yeah, humans who can do that really well are going to be even more valuable than they already are, of just being able to communicate in a really human way, which sounds kind of weird. But now that we're talking to all of these robots, yeah, being able to actually have that sort of human, emotional, experiential connection to what you're saying and what you're sharing, I think there'll be a premium on that for sure.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad we agree. I don't know why I said good, but I think it's good. I think it's good that happens, and I hope it does.
Hopeful. Yeah.
On kind of the same page, I think also interactive content, I think, is going to be very valuable, because there's just so much to read now. There's so much text out there. I think things like not quite courses, but things that'll make you try out what you've done. So like interactive tutorials and things where you're actually going through and building things, or even, I know it's dumb, but if you read something with a quiz at the end, you tend to read it a little closer or something like that, so that you are absorbing it a little more. So I think that all the way through to video, and I'm sure there's some people getting real into augmented reality and stuff, but I think these kind of content types where you're more engaged with it than just reading it are going to become very valuable, because I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little bit fatigued with how many articles come out. If I try to read something, it's a little bit lackluster now, as opposed to interacting with a chatbot who's got the information, or a video, or even, like I said, a quiz or something. I think that kind of content where you really do absorb it is going to be a little more valuable for companies than it used to be.
Yeah, I agree very much so. And having worked with a lot of chatbots through 2023, which are an interactive form of content, I think that's an important consideration now. Is like your blog post is no longer just competing with other static blog posts. It's also competing with like interactive models like ChatGPT and stuff, where I personally find it very valuable to be able to treat something like ChatGPT as sort of like my personal tutor. And so if I ask it a question about something and I don't quite understand, I can ask it another question. And yeah, so like I think that is incredibly valuable. And certainly like you can increase your engagement through quizzes and all of the other types of content that you mentioned. But yeah, like I really see that competition with LLMs as becoming a really important thing for publishers to consider. Um, and yeah, it just becomes a question of how do you do that effectively. Right now it's quizzes and things, but I think in the future we might see more AI integrated articles. Maybe you finish reading a blog post and at the bottom is their chat bot and it goes, "Hey, what do you think about this article? Do you have any questions?" or something like that. I could see things like that becoming very prominent.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be very handy to just be able to ask questions about the thing you just read to something that knows some answers or maybe a little more background information.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we've harped on this a bit already, I think, but things like that are going to contribute more to the transformation of SEO as a strategy as well. We're going to see a lot more of that through 2024. We've seen a bit of it in 2023, but I think it's really going to become important in 2024. Not that specific example I gave, but just but less emphasis being on just searching and trying to get organic traffic. I think one thing that's interesting is there's still an important role for publishing and SEO discoverability in a way that, but we're now thinking about kind of training these models in a sense. Like you want content on the search engine now for LLMs to read and inform their models about, which is an interesting problem that we didn't have in 2023. So like, yeah, I just think there's a huge shift in the way that the role of the search engine, and we've already talked about it a bit, so I don't want to go too deep into this point again, but also just the amount of content that's going to come out of this AI thing is going to force the search engines to kind of reconsider their position, how they rank things as well. I think we're going to see more of that throughout 2024. I know Google already kind of reversed in a way their policy on AI generated content, because that used to be a big no-no to have any automatically generated content. It would not rank. They've kind of gone the other direction with that because the quality of AI content has improved so much. But I think the next step is there's going to be utter saturation of so many blogs publishing probably like dozens of AI articles every day. And that's going to reach a point where the search engines need to adjust their approach. And so, yeah, just I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I would say keep your eyes on search engine developments in 2024 and just expect the market to change significantly around SEO and strategizing and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of concern about just the AI content in general, making things a little bit chaotic out there in the next year, because there's so many articles, and as we all know, it's all the LLMs are trained on everything that's on the internet, so they're becoming trained on these other articles, and it could be the start of a weird little spiral. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's something to watch out for, because the quality of the AI could actually go down as as it trains itself on its own writing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might become less reliable. I'm not sure. I don't believe that with my heart, but it is something I'm keeping an eye out for.
No, it's a very real thing. I think I read an article about how ChatGPT has actually gotten dumber since it's been interacting with the public.
Me
Which
too,
is
actually.
Yeah, which is not really that surprising, but it's certainly yeah, if we end up in a situation where the internet just becomes AI reading AI articles and writing new things about it, that's a downward spiral, um, and that could be a downward spiral for your content specifically, or just like the whole, content on the internet in general. So, to go back to the human in the loop thing, it's really important to take a critical eye of all of this content and really work to evaluate it and treat it with all the same scrutiny you would, more scrutiny actually you would from anything you got from a human writer.
Yeah, the AI is not necessarily an expert. You're trusting your human as an expert. So you're right. Yeah, be very, very careful with anything you're publishing. Do you think we'll see any new LLMs come out? Like, do you think there'll be a breakthrough from some company unexpectedly or anything?
I definitely think we're going to see some new LLM developments. I don't know if we're going to see anything too unexpected, maybe, but I feel like the nature of training LLMs kind of requires huge amount of resources and a lot of capital investment and things like that to get it going. So the ones that are on my radar are the ones from the major companies. And so throughout 2023, I think ChatGPT was pretty much, it was the name that everyone reached to for AI. But there were actually some pretty good competitors that came out in 2023 itself, and I've used them a bit. Google Bard is probably the main one that I've messed with as well. But Meta's Llama is out there. The big one that I'm looking forward to for 2024 is Google Gemini, or Gemini 2, which was supposed to come out like this month actually, but it was delayed. I believe Bard uses an earlier version of Google Gemini, so there is like some access for it. But yeah, that's the one that that I'm looking at, as they're advertising it as being like a very major competitor to ChatGPT. And I've heard really good things from Meta's Llama model as well. I haven't used it personally, but I believe we did some content that used the Meta Llama model as a chatbot. I've also seen they just came out with their own image generator version, sort of a competitor to DALL-E. All of these things are really exciting, and I think just like the more LLMs we have, sort of the better. The more competition there is in the space. We definitely don't want it to become like a monopolized situation. As much as I like ChatGPT, it's good to have some competitors in the market. And also, I think we should keep our eyes on ChatGPT as well. There are going to be I'm sure there's going to be a lot of developments coming out of it in 2024. So whether that's, I don't know if GPT-5 is on the radar yet, but I know they're training more advanced models, and there's some interesting things coming out. What do you think, Peter? Are there any on your list? Are there any maybe less prominent ones that I didn't mention here that you're tracking?
None specifically, but I am expecting to see kind of a few niche type models. Mm-hmm. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see somebody come out with a, say a language specific programming model that is specifically trained on one language and is very, very good at that. So I don't have specific examples, but I really think that's kind of the next step, is that smaller companies who can't compete with the big companies that you named, there's no way they're going to make a general LLM that's as good as these. Right. But I feel like there might be some space for certain niche, either in industry or in a specific field, where you might see an LLM come up that can really do some work for one specific niche, as opposed to the general use that ChatGPT has.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, just sort of specialized LLMs throughout 2024. I was just reading an article about how certainly a trend in like the software development industry, that we're seeing a lot more locally hosted LLMs, a lot less general purpose things that are running like in internal dev environments, and maybe have access to proprietary information, do a very specific function, like you said, instead of having these huge general consumer grade sort of LLMs that have an API and all of this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more specialization in addition to a bit more competition.
I would always see a company come out with an LLM that helps you integrate your code with their product. Yeah, so, I mean, it'll just come out and write connectors for you, or write whatever it is that will make sure that you don't have to actually do much to get their product to work with your code.
Right. We're seeing some things like that in like LangChain and some other products that let you orchestrate LLMs and AI and hook them into other APIs. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting possibilities for making your own sort of proprietary specialized AI.
Yeah, I think we'll see some of that. And the last prediction that I really want to put forward, and this is, it's not just because it's self-serving, but also because I believe this. We talked about this a little bit already, but I really think content strategy is going to become very, very important in 2024. As we discussed, you can't really just shotgun it anymore and just put up every bit of content you can think of and hope for the best. You really need a refined strategy that's going to walk people through. And I really think companies that don't have that are going to just be floundering a little bit. I think if you carry on as is and just, we're just making content to make content, then you're going to be in trouble. I really think that you need to sit down and put together a plan for 2024. Otherwise, it's just kind of throwing money out the window. I think you really need to know what you're doing, and you really need to know who you're targeting, how you're targeting them, and how you're taking them all the way to the sale. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough year. So, and I'm not just saying that because that's what we do, and we'd love to work with you, but that it's going to be true for next year.
Yeah, it's kind of the problem of now you have, like, if you have this supercharged AI thing, which direction do you point it in? And because if you point it in the wrong direction, it could be very counterproductive. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And if you ask it, it's not great at giving you an answer for which way to point it at the moment. So
that's true. So yeah, I think you're completely right. Strategy is more important than ever, and yeah, just really thinking about how you're creating content, who you're speaking to, why you're putting it out in the world, and just, and having a really holistic plan that, like Peter said, will carry through all the way to the sale or whatever it is, and not just dumping a bunch of content out there and hoping for the best.
all right. Well, that's the end of our look both back at 2023 and our thoughts for what's going to happen in 2024. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll answer a couple real quick here. I know we've gone a little bit longer than we normally do here. It's just such a fun topic that it's hard to rein it all in. So we'll answer a couple quick questions and then we'll let everybody get back to it. We appreciate you being here. Question number 1, Roger, let me throw this at you. As AI generated content becomes more prevalent, how can the authenticity of human created content be highlighted or marketed? That's a good question. We've talked a lot about authenticity, but how do we get that out there to the people?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to my mind, and I know I just said this a couple minutes ago, but really highlighting sort of your author bio, kind of putting that more at the forefront of articles, making sure that just, people know that a human wrote this, and hey, here's some other things that this human wrote, and go read about them, and here's what their experience is, and which is very simple kind of author bio stuff, but I think that's more and more prominent. And also, kind of like Peter said earlier, trying to add a lot of, like, not a lot of, but a certain level of personality and like sort of flair, human connection, especially in like your intro. It's something that captures the, like, I might be more tolerant of some like AI generated content halfway through an article that's just explaining, I don't know, some technical concept. But it's much better if in the beginning of it, I capture, I'm like, hey, this is a developer who wrote this. This is an actual person, and things like that. And then, so yeah, just like try to put the human element, like literally at the top of your article, I would say author bios, and then right into the writing itself. Make sure there's a sort of a voice and a human connection there. And yeah, I'm not sure if I touched on the authenticity part so much, but that's kind of how I would highlight just, the idea that this was a human created piece. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I think the authenticity will shine through if the article, like you said, if it's good and it's readable and it's a little bit entertaining. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of where the authenticity comes from, and that's people reading that get that immediately. So including that in is kind of key for that. And as to just to add to what you were saying there, sorry, as on top of the author bios and stuff, if you're using internal writers, if possible, it'd be great to allow them to interact with the readers, like allow, either a place for comments or questions from the readers, and have the author actually interact with them. I mean, that is so invaluable that we talked about having a chatbot to answer questions at the end, but if you can have the actual author come in and help, I mean, that kind of thing just really connects with people. So it's almost like, I hate the term influencer, but it's almost like, you have a face for this, and a face that can be reached and can be interacted with, and that kind of authentic connection can't really be faked. So if you're able to do things like that, I think that really helps shine through. That's obviously not the answer in every case, because that's not, people don't have the time for that. But if you can find people with that time and the ability to engage in a way that's not awful for the people asking questions, then I think that helps a bit, and that really helps that shine through.
That's a great point.
But yeah, otherwise, really just like you said, people know how to write and know how to get across their experiences properly. That authenticity comes through, and there's it's hard to highlight. It's hard to put up a Twitter post that says this is, hey, come read this. This is authentic. But if you continue to make content that is authentic and really touches people, people will connect to that. All right, let's get to one more question here, Roger. Then we'll let the good people go. Question number 2, if budgets continue to degrade for marketing, how can marketers use AI in such a way that they can continue to do more with less without affecting content quality? That's a very good question. That's not super easy to answer, but what are some tricks and tips that people can do to get more out of their AI?
Yeah, I would go back to sort of the human in the loop thing, just like building a really efficient system where, and this will probably look different for every team and every content producing effort, but just figuring out what weight sort of the AI can carry in your specific process. That might be like drafting, like drafting just prototype articles or something like that, or doing some kind of research, just having it suggest things to you. But rather than offering like specific ways that it could do it, just like I said, I think this will be different for every team. I think every team probably has some task that they just don't do efficiently, or just don't want to do, or don't have the resources to do, and just figure out what that is and how AI can help you with it. Because whatever it is, there's probably a way to use AI to at least get you, like 75% of the way there. And that's kind of a theme of a lot of this stuff is, let the AI get you 75% of the way there, and then figure out the rest for yourself. And so that's not very specific advice, but I think that's sort of the philosophy that I would take towards using AI to sort of battle budget constraints.
That's fair. I would also add, and this is a slightly different approach, but it's still kind of letting the AI do the 75%, but to do the 25% up front, to really have a solid plan for an article and really let your writers write, like you said, the intro and the parts that captivate them, and then, main points throughout, like all of the main points throughout. And then you can rely on ChatGPT or whatever a little bit more to kind of fill out the text. So as long as you know your main points and you know how to take what AI has written and make it a little more readable, inject your personality into it, it can, like you said, it can be used to do kind of the grunt work in between.
Yeah.
So instead of having it, instead of coming up with an article idea and just letting the AI do its thing, make sure that it's fully fleshed out, and then use it as it's supposed to be used, to fill in text, as opposed to coming up with ideas on its own.
Absolutely.
All right, we got one more audience question here, Roger. I know where I said that was going to be the last one, but let's sneak in one more quick one. Is it more likely with everyone using LLMs that everyone's content becomes homogenous? If so, how do you recommend companies differentiate? I can start with this one, because this is a little bit what we were talking about above, where I really think that human authentic voice coming through is going to make a big difference. Because like the question says, a lot of people are using AI content and it's all starting to sound a little bit the same. So one of the ways to make sure that your content doesn't become that way is to have writers and editors that you really trust, who can make sure that whatever you deliver is not the same homogeneous AI content. So either by knowing how to prompt it properly, or by like Roger said, having AI do that first 75% and then rewriting the parts that need to be rewritten to make sure that the article is authentic and sounds like a human and connects to people.
Yeah, great points. Just to build on that a little bit, things like style guides are still really important. Having like your brand voice, whatever it is. If you are going to be using AI to like draft posts, I highly recommend feeding it a bunch of content that really represents your voice and brand, that was written by a human author, like the top quality of your content, whatever that is, because it can help capture the nuances of your specific voice. And just not trusting like the general voice that LLMs have, because they do have a voice and a tone. And if you just go and if you talk to them without giving them any parameters, you can hear their voice. You can read their voice rather. And so just kind of avoiding that, giving it specific, unique prompts, trying not to be too generic. And the other thing that I would look for in 2024 that we kind of touched on is more of these sort of custom self-hosted proprietary LLMs kind of things. I think we'll see a lot more of that kind of a thing, where maybe you have an AI agent that you've trained to be your writer and it has your voice very specifically, and that helps you differentiate from just becoming the sort of soup of LLM produced content.
Soup is a good word for it. It's thick but not thick enough. I don't know what that means, but anyway, that's it for us. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate you joining us as we talk about the end of 2023, start of 2024. This is our last Fireside Chat for the year. We will be back with a winter Fireside Chat series that starts January 25th. So please come join us for that. If you have any questions or things you'd like us to talk about, or any questions whatsoever about anything we've discussed, feel free to email us. Check out our site, contentlab.io, I believe, or maybe we're contentlab.com now. I should know that. Go to either one of them. You'll find us.
I think they both work. Yeah.
I think they both work. So I think you'll get a hold of us. Content Lab is the main thing. And thank you very much for being here. And we hope to see you in January. Have a good Christmas, holiday, New Year, whatever you celebrate. And we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.